Mohit Gang, who's the CEO and founder of Money Front, joining us on the bulletin. Mohit, how significant are these allegations? What does it mean for Adani Group? Adani Group in toto lost about $150 billion since Hindenburg report came out on 24th of January, recouped some of its losses. The market cap is still down by about $100 billion. All stocks opening in the red this morning.
Morning, Karthik and Shweta. Look, so honestly, it's very difficult to comment as to what will be the extent and magnitude of negative impact or how the markets will now view this second report which has come on the Adani Group stocks. Honestly, I think look, it's very difficult to comment on these things because these are all allegations and these are all based on few findings which a particular non-profit organization or a reporting agency has reported from outside. It's absolutely difficult to substantiate it sitting down here for me or for you, anyone, to pass a judgment on these things, right? So I'll try and refrain from that. Honestly, but per se on the group stocks, there's a lot been happening, which I think we have discussed over last few previous shows also, that the group has been trying to shore up its liquidity and trying to come out of its non-core businesses, so on and so forth. Now, will that hamper the group's plan to divest out of few non-core assets? Possibly, yes, right? If there are foreign investors or if there are few investors who are wanting to pick up some stakes, maybe they will take a step back and wait and watch out for the situation to pan out. However, looking at the extent of negative impact on the stocks yesterday and today, it's not like a massive impact which happened when the Hindenburg 1 report came out, right? So stocks have reacted. Obviously, they will react to any kind of a negative news, and stocks which are always out there in public's eye will tend to react a little more sharper, right? But 2 to 1% negative impact doesn't kind of augur a meltdown in stocks, or doesn't kind of indicate that this is going to be a massive thing again. So to my mind, I think yes, it's good for an outside agency to come out and flash a report, but it's very difficult for us out here to substantiate sitting and pass a judgment on that.
Understood,
And I'll
Mohit.
refrain from that.
Right. I understand why why you would refrain from perhaps commenting further on it. We haven't been able to independently verify a lot of those claims made. Those are substantial allegations. But if at all found to be true, how significant are they? The allegation that Hindenburg made was that of stock price manipulation. It appears the new report by OCCRP is giving some fresh insight into how the stock prices may have been manipulated. Now, whether it's true or not, we don't know, but investors are spooked.
And honestly, Mohit, sorry, before you answer that, I'm looking at the latest, updates on stock prices coming in. Adani Enterprises is down about 4.7% already. We started the show with prices about 10 minutes prior to the show beginning. It was down about 2.5% or so. Adani Enterprises is down about almost 4.9% as we speak right now. Let's look at Adani Power. Adani Power is down about 5.19%. So overall, the mood of the investors obviously is very, very sullen right now.
And this is not just some profit booking that is happening on the back of stock prices going up in the past couple of days. This is clearly investors were spooked once again with a fresh set of insights that is coming in, Mohit.
Look, honestly, from a retail investor's perspective, I think it's better to just be on the sidelines and watch out the scenario. To be very honest, even for experts, it's very difficult to kind of assess what actually is the thing which is going on under the seats of various holding companies, so on and so forth. And most of these structures are offshore, so it's absolutely difficult for anyone to figure out the right intricacies of the entire thing, right? So for retail investors, I think they should just stay aside. They should let the entire thing calm down completely and get the valuations to be to come at a reasonable extent. Look, I comment on the merit of the stock, and I think from that perspective the valuations are still fairly high for few of the group entities. Few are looking attractive, and wherever there was merit, I think we've also seen some foreign funds or few other FIs picking up stake off late, right? But from a retail perspective, I think people should just wait out and be on the sidelines and not jump in just because there's a 3%, 4% or a 5% correction and try and bottom fish on these stocks. Honestly, I think it's just okay to leave few things aside.
Okay, Mohit, what does a 5% decline in morning trade tell us? I mean, markets have been open for what, just about under an hour
Under
or
an
so
hour,
right now.
yes.
So, what does it tell us? Is all the selling happening only by the retail investors? Do they have, even if many of them are large stakeholders, they are still in the minority, right? So, does it show that it is only the retail investors who are spooked, or are we also looking at a situation that many of these institutional investors are possibly offloading their stake in Adani this morning?
Look, possible. Maybe there are some big sellers out there. Definitely possible because the retail participation is not too high in Adani Group stocks, and even the DII, which is the domestic institutions like your mutual funds and insurance companies, hardly have any stake in the Adani Group stocks. If you go across the board and figure out compared to what other few other large cap or Nifty 100 names are included in few of the fund house holdings, the Adani holdings are pretty limited, right? So yeah, I think it's fairly possible that some institutions are selling or something is happening which perhaps you and I both don't know, or maybe there is something which is coming as part 2 or part 3 of this report, or something more which is coming out in public eye, which perhaps we'll come to know by the end of the day or maybe tomorrow, right? So on all these things, I've always realized that these news flows come in peels. You keep peeling like an onion, and you keep going bottom down for a few days till you figure out that the final base has come and you've peeled a little over over the entire thing, and then you start coming up. So I'll let the situation die down and calm down before taking any further interest in these stocks.
All right. Before we discuss your position, Mohit, on these stocks for future, let's break down what we know so far. So to start with, a couple of allegations that were made in Hindenburg. It appears that those allegations have been further made in this report, which is what Adani Group says, that this is in fact a copy paste of what
a rehash is the exact word
is of what Hindenburg came out with. Now, as far as allegations and the investigation into these allegations is concerned, we know SEBI has been investigating. Now the job seems to have been made tougher or easier. I don't know. I mean, I don't know the right word to use, Karthik. But SEBI said that we have investigated 22 out of the 24 allegations made. 2 allegations we're still investigating because these were offshore companies, opaque structures, and we were hoping for some information from outside entities. It appears we now have more clarity on which these offshore structures are, at least 4 companies that have been named in that OCCRP report.
Yeah, so we know who these funds are, and I think SEBI also, to my understanding, would have been able to track down the funds. I don't know. I mean, I'm prejudging what the report to Supreme Court possibly would have revealed, and what is already printed out for submission to the Supreme Court. But I believe it might not have been very difficult for SEBI to understand the entity which was making investments, which was buying and selling shares in Adani Group companies. What, to my mind, SEBI would have hit a wall against would have been to understand who owns these funds, because these funds would not typically disclose their ownership pattern. And even on the request or insistence of SEBI, SEBI would have very limited, if at all, any jurisdiction on a Mauritius-based fund. And Mauritius, as we know, has been a tax haven for certain reasons, and one of the reasons being that it takes privacy very seriously, and it takes it takes pride in saying that you can come and bank here. We are a tax haven. We are pretty much, a place where offshore entities operate from, because we keep your identity, completely confidential. And that was incidentally the case even with Switzerland in the banking space, many years ago. But with Mauritius, I think even with Mauritius, SEBI would have been able to identify the names of these funds, 4 funds which have been named in the OCCRP report. But SEBI would not have been able to my mind, penetrate into that entire food chain to understand who owns these funds, who funds these funds, and who eventually gets to keep the profits which these funds make. So that seems to have now come out clearly through the OCCRP report, that OCCRP has been able to understand who is sitting on top of these funds and has been able to draw these linkages with the Adani promoter family. And the allegations, again, coming for the benefit of our viewers right now, allegations coming that these 2 gentlemen, Nasser, Ahli, and Chang, Chung-Ling, both have served as as directors in Adani Group companies, and have worked in close association with firms directly associated with Gautam Adani's brother Vinod Adani. And the report claims that it has got access to certain emails from the Adani Group, which it has been able to dig into, and arrive at some of these conclusions.
Right, and establish a relationship between these funds and the Adani family.
That's right.
Per se. So substantiating some of those allegations that were made in Hindenburg, perhaps. Now, obviously, all of this is not substantiated at this point. So we put that disclaimer out once again for our viewers. All of this coming by the way of a report that was filed by OCCRP, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, which has now revealed that perhaps offshore structures that were used to buy and sell Adani Group stocks have relations with the Adani Group. So going back to, the way we started this, or how we started perhaps our show, is that Adani Group directly owning some of their publicly listed stocks.
Directly again.
Indirectly trading with
there is
listed
definitely
stocks.
a strong case building up to something which could border insider trading, if not exactly insider trading. Some exchange of emails, some exchange of information seems like a high probability right now, as per the report. Again, this is not my analysis, this is as per the report. If the report has been able to establish these links to the funds which have short sold Adani stocks, penetrated through their opaque structures to understand who's making money, establish a relationship between those who have directly made money with the promoters of the Adani family and Adani Group companies, then there definitely seems to be some sort of a nexus or some sort of an insider trading, border insider trading, which could have led to gains for vested interests.
Okay. And before we move on from the story, Mohit, perhaps a last question to you, at least on the Adani story and on the latest that has come by the way of this report. What is your advice perhaps to the current retail investors who are directly invested in Adani Group stocks? What should they be doing?
Oh, very clearly stay away. Look, very clearly stay away. Look, there's no dearth of quality stocks out there. This market is doing absolutely fantastic. Every day you hear news of few companies selling stakes, block deals happening, promoters divesting, few news, new order books, this, that, right? So there is a lot of quality out there waiting for you to pick up at right prices. And I have a very clear rule on this one, that anything which is to do with an investigation which is under jurisprudence, and there are reports which are investigations which are undergoing with SEBI and the Supreme Court both, right? So it's too premature for anyone and or even for me to comment on these kind of things. I would rather advise all investors to just take a silent wait and watch cautious approach on these stocks right now and move towards any other part of the market. Once everything settles out, once all the reports are out, once Supreme Court has or SEBI has investigated the matter completely, I think you can always go out and dabble in those stocks if you find some value.
And on your screens at this point in time, the latest as far as Adani Group stocks is concerned, some of these stocks down by about 3.5%,
4.75% as well.
4.75% as far as Adani Enterprise is concerned, 4.46% Adani Enterprise, Adani Ports down by about 3%, Adani Power 4.83%, ACC down by 3.3%. That of course is the latest as far as Adani Group stocks is concerned. So all day perhaps, I think there's going to be substantial limelight on Adani Group stocks performance.
Absolutely, and we'll have to obviously keep tracking that story. Let's just see if we have the numbers of how markets, broader markets are trading this morning as well. When we started the show, markets were up in the green, but yeah, there has been a little bit of beating that Nifty 50 has taken. Not sure if it's a direct repercussion of what we are seeing play out in Adani. Remember, I think Adani stocks which were part of the Nifty 50 had dropped off the Nifty 50 charts at some point. Mohit might be able to correct me there if I'm wrong, but Nifty 50 seems to have taken a little bit of beating. It started in the green, it's down, flattish down just about second decimal points in the red. Sensex, Nifty Bank, Nifty IT holding up well. Nifty IT started this morning up just about 0.6% or so. It's gained some momentum, up about 1.02% this morning. Mohit, is Nifty 50 taking the hit on its chin thanks to Adani, or there's something else at play?
Look, I don't think so. It's Adani alone, and I'm sure there are other stocks. The Adani Enterprises is the only stock, to my mind, which is a part of Nifty 50. In fact, Nifty Next 50 has a few names from the Adani group, honestly. So I think it's more of the banking index being a little weak of late, and I think banks have or financials have almost 35% weight to Nifty 50. So that's, I think, playing very heavily on the market. Honestly, one big divergence which we are seeing in the market is Nifty IT versus Nifty Bank. I think that's a clear story which is spanning out for last 2 3 odd months. If you see performance of Nifty Bank vis-a-vis the performance of Nifty IT, I think the divergence is massive. It's almost like 7 to 8%. Nifty Bank has been down almost 4 5% in last maybe 3 odd months or something, and Nifty IT in the similar time frame is up around 4 5%, right? So I think that's what is being playing, and that's the one heavy thing on Nifty 50 itself, because as I told, financials are almost 35% weighted, so which is a prime reason why Nifty has not been able to make its next move up.
Okay. And big headline likely to come today by way
By
of
the end of
GDP
the day.
numbers as well. Mohit, what are street expectations on Q1 GDP growth?
Look, I think again they're about 6.5% and thereabouts, maybe 20 bips up and down is what perhaps a different kind of forecasts are coming in, right? And I think the economy on the bottom line has been doing fairly well. The EPS growth, which I can see, which companies are claiming, I think Nifty this year will clock almost 1,000 rupee EPS, and it's almost like a 10% growth on previous year, which I think is fairly healthy, right? So I think all of this is coming from the underlying economic current, and my sense is the GDP numbers should come extremely positive.
All right, GDP numbers, of course, expected later today. We'll try and get more details as and when we can. But the expectations, positive growth expected to be anywhere between 6.3 to 6.5%. But better, perhaps more robust than what perhaps could come by the way of Q2 growth, where the expectations are slightly lower. But Mohit, thanks very much for joining in this morning for your insights.